an All-Ireland final. I mean, when the semi-final partnership or the teams get through the semi-final, yeah, it's a real possibility. And then the games come close, and you're like, oh, I really hope we got one team in it.
Well, I think it's definitely a possibility. Like I think that the bookies are tipping a Leinster Racing final, but not by very much. I think Munster have a real chance going over there. I think any team that goes to Bloemfontein and wins can show that they have a lot of character. They've already won. They've already drawn in France this season. They've already gone very close to beating Racing in France this season. They've had big days before. They're a quality side. There's no reason to doubt that an Irish final is a definite possibility. I still think Racing probably hold the edge a little bit, but I wouldn't be writing Munster off. And I think Leinster equally could be beaten at home by the Scarlets, but disregarding this weekend's third string performance, which was really poor, it gave the impression that the first team had been working pretty hard on a Scarlets plan. So yeah, look, I think it's definitely on. I don't think there's any doubt that it's on, but it's been on before and it hasn't come to pass.
Well, we'll do the Munster game in a minute. We'll start with the Leinster game. Leinster owe Scarlets for last season, and they owe the tournament for losing in the semi-finals, and also it's a home semi-final. So you would think that it's set up for them, that they've got the motivation, there's no complacency, and also they have just about the balance of players coming back from injury. Although I wonder if Henshaw is a realistic starter, and I wonder if Sean O'Brien is a realistic bench.
Yeah, they're good. They're valid questions. I think Sean O'Brien looked very rusty on Saturday. He carried his left arm quite heavily, came off at half time, didn't really make any impact on the game. Maybe he was minding himself to get through it, but Leinster, I think the management have made a decision over the last couple of seasons, based on kind of end of season performances, that they're no longer going to pick based on reputation, that they're going to pick, if a young guy's playing better on a week-to-week basis, they're not going to pick the guy on reputation. So that could squeeze Sean O'Brien onto the bench, maybe out of the squad altogether, I'm not sure. It's a big call. Robbie Henshaw, he's played more recently, so he'll have banked that. I mean, the Wales game isn't all that, or the Italy game isn't all that long ago. O'Brien had 20 minutes since Christmas.
Yeah.
And Henshaw there's more depth in the back row than there is in the midfield. So that's a boost, I think. Even if they're bringing him off the bench, I think having Robbie Henshaw back is a huge thing to have. So I think for all those motivating factors, Leinster need to put their chests out and say, look, we're the best team in Europe now. And play like it. I mean, they're
11-point favourites, which I'm very uncomfortable with.
Yeah, that's
brilliant.
That's a bit mad, and that's come in. It was even bigger when the draw was made, which I was really surprised by. Scarlets have rested their entire squad last weekend, even more so than Leinster. They've beaten Munster and Leinster in Dublin last season. We've seen how good they can be. They've got really good players. They've got really clever coaches in Stephen Jones and Wayne Pivac. So they'll have no fear coming over. But I think, if Leinster put their best foot forward out, they can beat any team in Europe, and they won't have any fear of the Scarlets. They'll have all those things in the back of their mind, but they're good enough to beat anyone.
Is Rhys Ruddock fit to play?
No. I'm pretty confident Rhys Ruddock won't play this weekend. They're kind of doing the whole, we'll see how he pitches up this week of training, but the sense is that himself and Jack Conan are struggling badly.
Right.
That Luke McGrath will be okay, and that Robbie Henshaw will be okay.
Jordan Larmour, is he a possibility?
He did 80 minutes on Saturday night. He didn't look the player that he was before he went away, but Saturday's game was really messy, and it was the backs didn't get front football. Joey Carby didn't have a great night, so that was difficult for someone like Jordan Larmour to shine. He still set up a try for Barry Daly. He'll come through that. I don't think I can see him wearing the number 23 shirt. Someone who can come on and change the game. He does make the bench, yeah. I would think so, yeah. Especially because Rory O'Loughlin was on the bench the last day. He picked up a head injury on Saturday, so he's unlikely to make it. So
okay.
Well, it could be him or Henshaw. Like, they have some big calls to make.
Can you get them both? So those two, and
you'd have to drop Rob Kearney and start Joey Carberry.
That's not going to happen.
Probably not. So this is Leo Cullen's challenge this week, is to pick the right bench, and they would admit themselves they got the end game of last season wrong. Johnny Sexton complained that when he had that bad game against the Scarlets in the semi-final, that he'd been too lightly raced after the Six Nations. He's played more rugby this season, but he's only played one game since Twickenham, which was a really good performance against Saracens. So there is a bit of they've been resting a lot of players. Munster have had to bring their squad to South Africa. They've all had a bit of game time. They've all been together, whereas Leinster have been chosen the opposite strategy. They've more Six Nations players. That could come back to bite them. I don't think it will in the semi-final, but I think they will need to play a lot of these players more. There's not a huge amount of games left, so I think they're going to have to play them pretty much every week for the rest of the season.
Is it a more condensed season this year anyway, if they do make the final?
Well, they get a weekend off because they've pretty much topped Conference A. The Pro 14 has become very convoluted, and they've topped Conference A, so they get the Maybank holiday weekend off.
It sounds like a UEFA Nations
You
League
love
effort.
permutation, in fairness.
Yeah, I mean, this could be my route into rugby. Complicated permutation system.
It's just, it was a competition that didn't have a huge amount of public interest in the first place, and they've made it more complicated, which always makes life more difficult. Topping the conference gives them a weekend off a week before the final, which I think they'll take the week before the Champions Cup final, so they wouldn't have a Pro 14 quarter final essentially that weekend. So that's going to be good for them. You would think that they can rest everyone and if they get there, but it's just a chance of getting there in the first place.
Yeah, okay. In terms of game plan, what did they learn from last year against Scarlets? Like, how do you actually stop the Harlem Globetrotters approach to rugby that they seem to have?
I think you slow down their ball. I think they gave the Scarlets backline Reece Patchell and all an armchair ride. If you don't slow their ball down, you need to get in their faces, you need to get off the line. So that's where Henshaw comes in. Himself and Easton Nasiwa will be very aggressive midfield. Ringrose is probably more clever defender, but they need to get off the line, get in their faces and stop that ball getting wide to the speedsters on the edge. People look at the tries being scored out wide and they think what's going on the wings, but actually it's happening inside. You're not slowing down the ball. You're not getting their faces. You're not putting pressure on the centres who are delivering, or those forwards. We saw Jack McGrath throw a horrible pass on Saturday. If you can put pressure on a prop throwing a pass, he's more likely to make a mistake. So they just need to A, slow the ball down, B, get in the faces of the midfielders, and then C, just get their spacing right outside, which is probably the most difficult part of it. If you've given Steph Evans a one-on-one, you're in trouble anyway. You're depending on a one-on-one defender to make that tackle, and that's where they struggled in the past.
James Lowe is obviously somebody who has really excited every time he's got the ball, but he's also somebody who took a little while to get up to the standard of defence that Leinster would be used to, and definitely had a much improved defensive outing in the quarterfinals. Does he automatically start? Like, is there a possibility that you see Easton Nasiwa on one wing if Henshaw comes back and that Fergus McFadden keeps his place, or?
It's a possibility, and it's the conservative call. And what Leinster have been all season is being brave with their selections. I don't see that being the way to beat Scarlets. I think you don't tighten up against Scarlets. I think if Luke McGrath is fit, then Lowe starts. So Lowe and Scott Fardy in that 3-2 scenario that's there, another complication. But I think Lowe gives you so much with the ball. The best form of defence is attack. You get the ball wide to James Lowe, you're going to create stuff. We saw it first 5 minutes against Scarlets. He broke that game wide open, and I don't think you can take that out of your team.
If Robbie Henshaw is fit, does he start? Is that get him out and give him? See how long you get out of him? I
would think so. I think he was their marquee signing. He was almost like an overseas signing when they got him. I think you start him and you can't drop Ringrose. So I think Fergus McFadden could be in trouble for his place this week. It was interesting that he played last weekend.
Is there any possibility that they keep Issa in reserve on the bench and that Joey Carberry gets dropped from the bench? That Sexton is backed up by Issa?
Possibility. I don't see it. I think even the fact that they moved Carberry to 15 last weekend just show, after 60 minutes, just showed that they're working on him to have him ready to be on the bench this weekend.
Yeah.
Carberry gives you a lot of bench. They're not playing East an awful lot, but I don't see them going into this without him.
Yeah. They're keeping him for the big games.
They're keeping him for the big games, and he delivers in the big games. I mean, he outpaced. I think he outpaced Liam Williams in the last game.
He gets on the wing.
He gets on one wing.
McFadden.
Lowe and the other. McFadden. It's a difficult one. I would never not pick Robbie Henshaw. I would always have him in my team. Ringrose in sensational form. East is not a natural centre anyway, so. They missed a lot of tackles against Saracens in the centre, even though they coped with it. So if you put your best defender in the midfield, in Robbie Henshaw, if he's fit, then you find Issa somewhere.
A positive.
Yeah, I mean, Rob Kearney's not going to get dropped. He's in great form. So yeah, I think McFadden could be the one who gets squeezed, just like he did in the Six Nations, which would be really harsh on him. But he went, I think, 60, 70 minutes at the weekend. He made quite a big mistake for the second try. He's probably the most vulnerable of all of those backs.
Okay, the rest of the team kind of picks itself. In terms of Munster and obviously the success of the tour, they're talking about that being on tour and just the importance of that generally to the squad. And, if they win this game against Racing, no doubt they'll go, that was amazing. You can't see it being the reason that they lose. Like, Racing are obviously a team of all the talents. So what is going to be the thing that tips it in their direction if they do win?
It's good that they're on a Sunday because they've quite a lot of travel coming back, but it's given them more time. So I don't think they can use that as an excuse at all. I think a week in Cape Town will have done them very, very well. The thing that tips the balance is Conor Murray, I think. so important to that team. He came on after 30 minutes against the Cheetahs on Friday night, which was they were in trouble. They were in real trouble, and the Cheetahs are a really good team in Bloemfontein. They absolutely hammered Leinster. They've beaten a lot of teams there. And
they must have been thinking twice about making the sub. Like, it's like, oh, you're really only on the bench here because we need you. But like,
well, beating the Cheetahs probably got them a home semi-final in the Pro 14, which probably earned the organisation quite a lot of money. So it was a big game, even though it was, I think Leinster could take their eye off the ball and still top their pool. Munster had to get out of Cheetahs with at least a losing bonus, and they also don't want to come in. Like, where Leinster rested everyone, it didn't really matter what happened on Saturday because their momentum starts today. Whereas if Munster played a lot of their players and they get a defeat, you kind of want to come in bouncing from that tour. You've had a nice week in Cape Town, up to Bloemfontein. You get a win in a place where nobody wins at altitude. Really tough place to go. And a really strong win, a really strong second half performance. But I think Murray is the difference, and I think we saw that in all their big games this season. Himself and Peter O'Mahony set the standards for that team so much. It was an arm wrestle when Racing came to Thomond Park, and then it was this kind of shoot the lights out when they played over in Paris under the roof at the U Arena. It'll be somewhere in between, I think, in Bordeaux, depending on the conditions. The more arm wrestly it is, I think the more it'll suit Munster.
In terms of the Munster team selection, again, is everybody fit who they expect to be fit? And
well, Keith Earls looks like he's going to come back,
right,
which is a massive boost to everyone. Simon Zebo played at the weekend, which I think was ahead of what most of us thought when we saw him going off after 20 minutes of the quarter final.
Totally.
So they've pretty much everyone on deck that he like Chris Farrell, Jaco Taude is still out, but their pack is still pretty strong. I think James Cronin is struggling a little bit. He got injured over in the first game in South Africa against the Kings, and their back line is probably going to be similar enough with Earls to come in and strengthen things. So we saw how well those centres played.
They were brilliant.
They're up against. It's not quite. It's a different challenge because Racing play a different way. They don't have the two absolute monsters in midfield. They're a good team. They've Donncha Ryan, who's a bit of a sleeper. He knows. Munster said they wouldn't change their calls the last time they played Racing when Donncha Ryan was playing. So he knows what Peter O'Mahony's going to do and Billy Holland is going to do. He knows the strategy. It's just Munster back their execution to get past that. He was really good in the quarter-final.
Would an All-Ireland final be a greater triumph for Irish rugby than the Grand Slam?
I don't know why we have to say one's greater than the other.
That's why we're here.
That's live. That's sporting debates.
Yeah, it is.
If you don't debate that, then why would you debate anything?
I think the Grand Slam, if it was a Six Nations success, fair enough. I think the Grand Slam stands alone. Grand Slam is, it's up there with the World Cup in terms of achievement. But I think to show that Ulster and Connacht had really poor seasons, so you couldn't say Irish rugby's in a really, really healthy place. But for those two provinces who drive the whole thing really to get to a final, it would be an incredible achievement. The English clubs have had a really poor year, so there's that. There are mitigating factors. They've exploited that. But for Munster to go away and win a semi-final, and Leinster to do what they've done in terms of being really consistent all season, it's a massive testament to that. I don't think it tips the Grand Slam, but it's up there, and it would just make this the greatest season in Irish rugby history.
Where do Paddy Jackson and Stuart Olding end up, do you think?
My gut would be Jackson will go to France and Olding may have to go further afield. I think the English clubs are going to come under a lot of pressure if they try and sign them, because I think this has made an impact in the UK that it hasn't made in France. Now, the English clubs live in a different bubble because they've 12 clubs. They don't get the national media focus that the Munster Leinster operate. It's particularly everything they do is monitored by you guys here, by us in the papers. Whereas Exeter get by at least half of the rounds wouldn't get a national correspondent. So it's a kind of a quiet life. But I think the focus would come on them if they.
Stuart Barnes is writing about it today in the Times. Now, I don't know if it's a piece specifically to the Irish edition, but it'll certainly be carried in the UK edition, and he's talking about the UK sponsors are going to be looking at it in exactly the same way the Bank of Ireland are looking at it and going, no thanks.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the further you move away, like Ben Teo was cleared of an incident, not of the same scale in Australia before Leinster signed him, but it got mentioned in all the pieces when he arrived, but it really didn't. It was so far away, it was so far removed that it didn't really affect him when he came over. He went on to become an England international. I think the further afield you go, the less this stuff sticks to you. But if you just move to England, where the reports of the trial, I was surprised they didn't get more play over there, but the verdict and the IRFU decision to revoke their contracts certainly have been picked up big time in the UK media. So I think rugby fans over there are very much aware of what's happened. I don't know if it's gotten the same emotive response. I don't know if it will have the same level of fan reaction if they were to be signed. I mean, can you imagine if the IRFU had taken the other decision and kept them, and the the text that you guys will be getting, the letters they would have gotten, the sponsor response.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it will have the same resonance because they haven't lived through it every day in the way that we have in terms of everything coming through in the media. I think it's been the biggest story of the year, so that's definitely there. But I do think that sponsors and clubs that have, if you sell your sport on values, then you have to take a big deeper breath before you make that decision to sign these two players, who are undoubtedly really good rugby players. But they're going to bring a bit of a stink to your club, especially if you're in an English language area and you're picking up all the media that's about them. Because the first thing every fan does when they sign a player is you Google.
Who is this person?
Yeah, and that's going to cause a couple of problems.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff, Rory. Thanks very much for joining us this morning.